Welcome back. I'm Calvin Statue Fanatic here with another review, and today, yet again, we're going to take a look at another Court of the Dead piece. This is of Cleopsis. This is the very first Court of the Dead piece that I ever saw. Gina over at Gina B Collecting reviewed this about a year ago. That's right. It's not a new figure. It's still available on Sideshow's website. There's about 3,000. There's 3,000 pieces of these made, but it's new to me. I just got it, decided to order it. In fact, after seeing Gina's review, that is what made me decide to take a second look at the Court of the Dead. And if you have not checked out her review, please head over to Gina B Collected and check out the review, amazing review she did of Cleopsis. Mine probably not going to be as great as hers, but again, it's a piece that I've been wanting to get for a while. I've got some other pieces before this piece, so you can check out those videos that I've done over the past several months as well. But now that I have Cleopsis, we're going to talk a little bit about Cleopsis, one of the members of the Court of the Dead created by Death the All-Taker himself. So a little bit about her background. So she is one of the Court of the Dead figures that, in reading the material that's out about her, she has not as much material written about her. It leaves her past as sort of a mystery as to why. So she was created by Death for a specific purpose. The All-Taker created her to send her to Earth, or to send her to live among mortals, so that she can gain more insight into what is it that gave us that spark. But as she began to observe mortals, she started to pursue an individual path of just power. She realized that we would worship or bow down to anything that we feared or admired. And being who she is, she took advantage of that. And at some point during her observation, she became incredibly powerful. She ruled an entire civilization, and that was not the intended purpose for her going to live among us. And so her power became so great until she got the attention of the celestial realm, heaven and hell. And after gaining their attention, this is something that the All-Taker Death did not want. He did not want to be on their radar just yet, because he has another plan in the making. And because of that, she was called back to Ilvernus. And right now, she's still a member of the Court of the Dead. But the thing is that she doesn't really have a purpose as of yet. She serves the Queen Glycynime, her sister, I guess. And as far as what's happening with her, according to Maleficaros, she's got something cooking in her mind that she is planning, but nobody knows what it is. But he did say, Maleficaros said, that if the All-Taker knew what she actually had planned, it would be the end of her. It would be her demise. So that's a little bit about her, the mystery around her. And it's really interesting that she comes in this particular form as an Egyptian queen, because, you know, like in history and things like that, that's kind of like the cradle of civilization and some of the most advanced civilizations back then. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about the statue itself. She stands about 25.2 inches tall. And she is about 16 inches wide, and this is pretty much from the end of this sickle to the end of the serpent that she's holding right there. And then from this angle, from the back of her headdress to the front of the base, she's about 10 inches. So it's a pretty substantial statue, quarter scale figure. And we'll start talking about some of the really cool aspects of this statue. And again, I've said this with all of the Court of the Dead figures that I've gotten so far. I've been just totally impressed with the amount of detail, attention to detail that Sideshow pays to its original line of characters. Everything from the paint to the sculpt, and everything seems to come out flawless most of the time. And that's been the case for all the pieces that I've gotten. Now, as far as she's concerned, let's talk a little bit about her pose here. I love the pose that she's in, and she's in sort of like the last figure that I reviewed. I said that she was in a very dramatic pose, and I think this is kind of like the same type of pose where she's just displaying it all. This is who I am, and she's got all of who she is on display in a very dramatic fashion, and I really like that about the pose. It just looks really, really fantastic. The same thing with the sculpt and the design of this piece. Now, when you talk about starting with the portrait here, she comes with two portraits. The portraits that you see right now is the unmasked portrait of her, where you can see her sort of undead face. Again, even that, as you can see, has a ton of detail in it. Looks really solemn. It almost, and reading her background, her face without the mask kind of exemplifies what it is that she is now, this brooding, hollow soul, and that kind of is what her eyes looks like, what the whole facial expression looks like. So what I'm going to do is right now I'm going to take this particular portrait off so that you can see the other portrait. Pretty much everything else about the portraits are the same. The headdress and everything is the same exact mold. It's just that when you change to the other portrait, it changes the to the face mask. Now, something unique about this is that this portrait comes in two pieces. And I'll turn it around here so you can see here. There's these dreads that are all sculpted, and I'll show some details of that. But that is a separate piece than the actual portrait. So you got to be really careful when you're taking this off. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the dreads off first and sit that down, because you use it with both portraits. And then you take off the portrait here. I'm not sure which way. I should have watched Sideshows on out of the box to see which one you put on first, but it seems to work the way that I did it. So I'll put in the portrait here. You can see with the mask portrait there, and then the headdress fits in there. First I was a little nervous because the headdress is sculpted. If it falls, it's breaking. No doubt about it, it's gonna break. But it has a pretty solid magnet. So what we'll do is we'll start with this particular portrait, the one that I like. And as you look at her portrait here, it has this silver type shiny overtone, like a metal mask to it almost. And then as you look at her eyes, it has this blue tinge to it. And you know, in the Court of the Dead, that kind of signifies this power, this ether, this soul source, this soul power. And you can see that coming through her eyes. And then on the portrait, you also have a skull that's sculpted on the top here. And as you look around the portrait, she has this headdress that is in the silhouette of a cobra snake. But what's interesting about it, it looks like it's made from the vertebrae of some type of creature. Really unique piece there. And on the top here, you have this flying creature, which I'm assuming is one of these beetles down here that is flown, that they show flying or on the headdress there. Lots of detail in the headdress and in her face. It just looks really amazing. And as I turn her around here, I told you about the dreads. Now these dreads are like amazing. I mean, there's tons of detail. You even have these bands that are banding them together in different locks. Just a really, really cool sculpting and design on that looks really amazing. And then turning her back around, she has these earrings that come all the way down into what looks like mixed media, almost like a leather type piece here that you can move. And one thing that I do want to point out is that this does have a lot of mixed media, as though a number of the Court of the Dead pieces, and a lot of people I know, they like fully sculpted statues, but when it comes to this particular line, I think that the mixed media plays extremely well with it. It just adds to it. It makes it look really amazing. So as you continue down, she has a neck dress on that has a lot of design and detail and sculpt in it. And the same thing with this breastplate that she's wearing. It almost looks like some type of armor, and it has some type of creature. Again, it looks like almost like a spider design here with you can see the head of the spider and the legs that are going across to form part of the armor. And then the other layer of the dress that she's wearing, or the outfit that she's wearing, you can see here a lot of detail with the belt buckle here. And on the side, she has this almost utility belt type thing where it looks like there is bones for some, maybe casting spells or something, a little vial vase here, and as well as a sickle of some kind, maybe used to gut someone. But it looks really, really cool. And then here all the way down her legs, you see that there's this really cool elements that are designed into here. Looks really really fantastic. I mean, the attention to detail is just amazing. And going all the way down to the base here, the base has a small footprint, which I like, which means that it is pretty you know, easy to store somewhere in this vertical position here where you don't have a really wide base. But what's really, really cool and unique about this is these beetles. And you guys kind of remember like seeing the Mummy movies and things like that, where these beetles of death is what I call them. They probably have a different name, but the creepy, crawly, icky type things that just give you that feeling. Those are crawling all around the base, which gives it an incredible look. And then they have, and we'll talk about that later when we get to the paint, and then you have this emblem here of the Court of the Dead, kind of reminiscent of this here where it says rise, rule, and conquer. When you see most of the Dead of the Court of the Dead merchandise, you'll see that. And then as I turn her around here on the back, now what's interesting about this outfit that she is wearing here, now the beetles, I say it here now, if you can imagine these beetles with their wings spread and they're flying, that is pretty much what the outfit that she's wearing looks like. It looks like the two wings of a beetle and it's wrapped around her. So that is a really cool take, very imaginative in terms of the outfit that she's wearing. And even the armor on her leg almost looks like it could be part of the armor of a beetle of some kind. Fantastic. There's a lot to talk about the statue, so I'll try to get through it pretty quickly. But in terms of elements, now here she's offering up this serpent in this very agitated state where it is just, you know, hissing or whatever the case may be. It is the skeletal remains of a snake that is brought to life by the ether that is shining through it. You can see that bluish aqua blue tint to it. And this looks really good under the light, like the other ones, like this was coming from the Well of Souls on Death statue that I have. Under certain lighting conditions, it looks really cool. And then if you go over to the other arm, she's holding a staff with this sickle half moon type weaponry at the top of it. And here at the very end of it is a skull that looks absolutely detailed to the hilt. I mean, just so much fine detail in it. It looks really cool. And then her holding it, you look at the detail on her arms, her hands, the gauntlet looks really absolutely stunning. These are some very, very beautiful pieces. If you are into the mystical, otherworldly type things, the Court of the Dead is just an amazing line of characters with some very interesting backgrounds and stories, and they just look so freaking awesome. Especially, you know, you monster type person, all that looks great. It's not too horrific, but yet it gives you that. It's kind of hard to explain, but as you can see, I really like this type of genre of figures and collecting. Now, as it go to the design of the statue, we're going to talk a little bit about the mixed media here. Now she has this Egyptian motif as well as the belt that's going down, that's hooked to the buckle, and right here, all wired where you can pretty much fashion and move it in any way that you want. I just think that the design into it and how it's executed really adds to the drama of this particular statue. I mean, it looks really freaking just dramatic, if you will. And the same thing with the here, like I said in my last video, I'm gonna have to eat all of the words of all of my friends who always say that I play with dolls, which I don't. They're statues, by the way. But it's kind of hard to defend that when you have this mixed media here, because you really do have to play around with it and fashion it. And I really like the wiring in here because it allows you to do it in such a way easily to make it just kind of flow in whatever way you want it to flow without having to fuss with it too much. So I like that a lot. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to concede to the doll thing, kind of hybrid doll, if you will. But yeah, I kind of like it a lot. And then in terms of something I did miss, I do want to go back to the flesh and the flesh tone. Like I did mention this about her face, and the same thing, you can see the exposed flesh on her knees because she's really covered in terms of the armor and what she's wearing. So you see little of her actual body, but the parts that you see, you can see the decrepit crypt type form of her body. And here on the back, you can see some of it too, and it looks really great, man. Lots of just details and things in it, the way that it's sculpted. Now, as far as the paint application on this, man, it just makes me smile, dude. This is just like insane. The attention to detail, the flawlessness of the execution of the paint job. Now, I looked over this, and what's really cool about some of the pictures that you were seeing is that behind the camera, having a high-powered macro lens that you can take and zoom and look at some really fine detail, you can pretty much see a lot of flaws if there are any. Was really fun taking pictures of this, because looking through the lens, I appreciated this piece even more because I couldn't find any flaws, and the detail up close, and I hope some of the pictures that you've seen or I'm showing here does that justice. God, man, even a headdress, the different tones and paint color scheme in there has sort of a silver, copper, brass, oxidized look to it. The same thing with all of the armor she's wearing, and the armor here around her waist, and then the gauntlets that she's wearing has this metal, like, I mean, it looks pretty dangerous. It looks like she can really mess up some stuff there. But the painting and the shading of it just makes it look really fantastic. If I could find something about this that I would just, you know, say isn't great, I would, but it's really hard with this particular piece. Surprised that I didn't get this earlier, and I'm not sure why, because it's the first one that I saw, the first one that I really loved, and I didn't get it. And it's still available. Like I said, there was 3,000 of them made, so you can still get this. The other ones, I guess I wanted to get, because I started collecting so late, I wanted to get those because those had gone up in value and were a little bit more difficult to get. So here, look at the two tones that are in her braids. I mean, I see all types of hinges of color. So if you were to see someone that had braids like this, or dreads, let me say that, dreads, looking under certain light of it, you would be able to imagine what that would look like with the highlights and the darks. Looks amazing, all of it. The snake, again, lots of detail on here, the sickle, that skull, just the paint scheme, the whole Egyptian motif looks amazing. I love that, though. I love the whole Egyptian thing. I wish if they had any more with the Egyptian motif, I would be down with getting that, because I really like it. And I'm a big fan of The Mummy, period, the horror movie The Mummy, so I like that aspect of this too. And if I were to have Sideshow's original Mummy, which I had at one point, their original Mummy from the Universal Premium Format Figure that they did some years ago, I would love to display this with it. And so I've thought about getting it back. I've got some of them, but I don't have the Mummy yet. Well, but that is about it when it comes to Cleopsis, Eater of the Dead, from Sideshow, a premium format figure from their Court of the Dead again. A very, very interesting line of characters that they have executed, in my opinion, almost flawlessly. And if you want to stay on top of the latest in the world of collecting, please head over to mcecentral.com. Check out myself, George, Seth, JR with some of the coolest reviews and unboxings of some of your favorite pop culture characters. Seth is just killing it, pop gods! Dude, you're just doing an amazing job. Thanks for picking up the mantle for collecting on a budget. I'll be doing some more videos for that, man. You did a fantastic job. So guys, if you want to just stay on top of this and get your collecting fix, please head over to mcecentral.com. And until next time, peace.